Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am once again in the car, which means I have seen yet another new movie. I am not joined as usual by my esteemed co-host DJ. Instead, I am joined once again by the ever-popular, ever-famous, unlimited popcorn bucket. Say hi, popcorn bucket. Alright, so the film that the popcorn bucket and I saw this afternoon was none other than the Universal horror remake of Dracula's daughter, known as Abigail. So overall, popcorn bucket, what did you think about this film? Still being generous. Okay, maybe not that generous, but I see your point. Yeah, so this film actually, if I were to give it a 1 out of 10, I would give it an 8 out of 10. This film is really well done in a year that has been very disappointing as far as films go. This film was actually really well put together and really well done. Universal really does a good job with their monster movies. Especially not just like the classic Universal monster movies like we see, you know, with the Revisited series, but just in general, most times when Universal does monsters, they do monsters very well. Like last year they did The Last Voyage of the Demeter, and as much as that film didn't really do super well in the box office, it was actually a pretty well put together film overall cinematically. Where it lacked was mainly with some character decisions, and it fell into a couple of different little tropes and stuff like that. This film, however, is good, and it has some similar things going for it, while it also has some negative things going for it at the same time. But overall, it is a very enjoyable film. It is a very well put together film. The acting is done very well. The story is interesting and compelling, and overall, I just have to say that the film was really a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Granted, to be fair, some people might think that this film's not super great, but perhaps part of the reason that I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 is because I really was not expecting that good of a film to begin with. But as far as like a classic horror film, this film is very good. There are a couple of parts in it that I'll get into in spoilers that aren't necessarily the greatest, but like I said, overall, it's really well done. The sound's okay. The score, outside of the really awesome, it's kind of a throwback, but at the same time, it's also an Easter egg. Outside of that song, the score is kind of up and down, but overall impressions are, it's good. 8 out of 10. Do I recommend seeing it in theaters? Yes, just because I think that films like this do deserve to have some patronage, so that way that Universal and other studios like that are willing to make films like this and be a little bit more experimental, even if it is just kind of supposed to be a remake of a film from the 1930s. So yeah, that's kind of what I have to say as far as non-spoiler. So thanks so much for listening to this non-spoiler section of this review. If you are only here for the non-spoiler section, please let us know in the comments. What are you looking forward to about Abigail in the comments below? Otherwise, give us a like. Let us know that you appreciate these reviews, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Otherwise, I'm going to move on into spoilers. So, spoilers. As much as this film was kind of said to be a remake of Dracula's Daughter from the 1930s, it is nothing actually like the movie from the 1930s. The 1930s movie really kind of follows Dracula's Daughter immediately after the events of Dracula, the novel, and the novel is kind of how they ended 1931's Dracula. So 1933, 1934? Okay. that is when Dracula's Daughter first came out. And the thing is that it was kind of a change in the genre, but at the same time it wasn't. So Dracula's Daughter in the 1930s movie had kind of a henchman. She was going around and she was just kind of, she had kind of like a weird, I think it was a love story kind of thing. It's been a minute since we watched it, but this film is way, way different. Whereas the other one was kind of focused on this odd romantic relationship and then heading back to Transylvania kind of thing. After, of course, being in London for the majority of the film. This film actually takes place, I believe, in the United States somewhere. And it sees a team of kidnappers essentially gets trapped in a house with a vampire. That's really what was already put into the trailer, and that really is the premise of the movie. So it's not really a remake as much as it is just acknowledging the fact that Universal had created a character known as Dracula's Daughter. The name isn't the same, the characterization isn't the same. Dracula's Daughter in the 1930s movie was an adult, whereas in this one, she's been around for a long time, obviously, but she was still a child. Obviously, like, you can tell just by the trailer and the posters and everything like that. The thing that I was kind of surprised about when it came to this movie was that kind of the dynamic of the team and how the team worked together. I was kind of afraid that it was just going to be a bit of a people trapped in a haunted house and running around and things like that. And I guess that's kind of like, if you really get to the meat of the movie, that's kind of what it is. But I didn't think that I was actually going to be invested in all of the twists and turns that happened within the characters. As compared to it just being a fight for survival, there was a lot of elements in it where it was like getting to know why the people were in the house to begin with, why she was trapping them and trying to hunt them down, but also their dynamics and all the deals and crap that they are trying to get in order to survive. Some of the places that I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of is, as fun as the exploding people and the explosions and stuff were, so anytime a vampire gets in contact with sunlight or gets like a stake driven through their heart, they literally explode. And I thought that was kind of interesting because it's something that you're not really expecting, and then it just kind of happens. And it's literally like they get in contact, like Abigail goes and has a guy by his throat. They open up the window. They like unboard the window, and her hand literally just explodes. So that really threw you off. You're like, what, did she like kill him? And then she like lifts up her hand and it's just a nub. And it's like, oh crap, like it's not just like burning, melting kind of thing that you usually see with vampires. It's literally like a uber violent, gory explosion. So when they put a stake through somebody's heart, they don't just like, oh, they literally combust, which is like a really fun thing. But at the same time, this film as a result becomes very, very gory. And as fun as the explosions and stuff were, and as fun as some of the visuals are, I really am just not a fan of gore. That's really the biggest issue I have with this movie as far as the visuals are concerned, is the gore. Because the set design is amazing. The costuming is done really well. A lot of the shots and things like that, cinematically speaking, are done really, really well. And even some of the other visuals and stuff like that are done well. This film, however, just, I am not a fan of gore, and it is a very, very gory film. And not like to the levels of Saw or anything like that, but the vampires literally explode, and when they explode, it is like blood, intestines, everything in them just blows up. they have a scene where one of the characters becomes a vampire, and the way that he becomes a vampire is he literally throws up like an excessive amount of blood. And that's just one of those things where it would be interesting if it was like kind of like done very like quickly, because heightened tension where it's just like, okay, was he like betrayed? Is he not supposed to drink this guy's blood? Did we not understand the lore right? Because it doesn't establish in there at all that that's actually how you become a vampire. So I thought, okay, he got betrayed and now he's dying an even worse death than before. But it goes on for much too long, and as a result, you're literally watching a man like projectile vomiting blood for a good 30 seconds. So it's just a little too long on that. And there's a couple of other scenes in there that don't work super duper great. There's like some stunning visuals that work really well, but then sometimes the visuals are just a little too much, if that makes sense. Like I said, it's a very gory film. I wasn't expecting it to be gory. As far as the story is concerned, a lot of the stuff is done really, really well up until the ending. The ending has about 3-4 twists in it, and it's good because it's like, you know, it keeps you kind of on your toes, but eventually it gets to the point where it's just like, can you just end? Can we just have the resolution? Do we really need another twist? Because at the end of the movie, they literally get led into like a back room that has all of the control panels in order to unlock the house, because they're locked in there on purpose in order for Abigail not only to just like kill them for the sake of her father's criminal empire business thing, but literally so that she can have fun and play with her food. So they end up getting led into the actual control room of all of the locks and windows and stuff like that, and we meet the helper. I feel bad. He's a very popular actor. He's in Breaking Bad, The Mandalorian. He's been in a lot of stuff lately, and he's a really great actor. So what? Him. He's in the control room, and it turns out that, yes, he was turned into a vampire, and as a result, he's kind of the henchman. I kind of figured that he would be the helper because, like I said, in Dracula's Daughter, the 1930s film, she had a helper who facilitated a lot of the stuff that she needed. As much as she hated her father and hated being a monster, she still had this man essentially go and collect all of the people so that she could take care of them. Not like take care of them, but you know what I mean, like take care of them in a mob way. So I wasn't surprised that he was at the control panel, but he goes and he's like, I'm going to make you a deal. And the deal is that you help me kill the little girl, and if you help me kill the little girl, I let you live and we take over everything. And he gets this deal with Frank, who's the police detective guy who turned dirty. So they make that deal, and as a result, it's like, oh, he's going to overthrow her. Oh, this is so cool. And then he becomes a vampire, and first thing he does when he becomes a vampire is he kills the helper guy. He's like, now if I kill the little girl and the dad, I can take over the empire all on my lonesome. And then Abigail shows up, and they have a fight. And Frank seems to win the fight, while what's her face tries to escape. And then Abigail turns out not to have been killed in the fight with Frank, and now she's making a deal with Joey, our main character, and it's like, hey, if you help me kill him, I'll let you go. But I need your help because he drained me of most of my blood, so I'm kind of weak. So they start fighting each other, and it goes back and forth. Eventually, he bites Joey and starts acting like he's going to make her a puppet, which is something that Abigail had done to one of the other members of the group before. So you're like, okay, he actually could probably do it. But then obviously while they're heading in to kill her. Inevitable betrayal. She tries to stab him, and it doesn't work. Another twist! Eventually, they end up beating Frank, and then Abigail goes through with her deal and is like, go be present in your kid's life, unlike my father. Be a better parent. You're not going to turn into a vampire because you already killed that dude. Go live your life. And then, of course, another twist. Dracula shows up. And then Dracula acts like he's about to kill Joey. And there's a little conversation, high tension. And then he lets Joey go in yet another twist. Too many twists at the end. This film was done very, very well. I was very heavily invested. I liked the majority of this film. The ending had it had 3 too many twists, in my opinion. So that is like the biggest negative of this film, is literally the ending of the film. Because the story leading up to it, all the other characters, even the characters' dynamic is really well done. Some of them feel really tropey, but the most annoying tropey character was Dean, and he's the first one to die. And he dies a lot sooner than you would kind of expect. So I was very thankful when he died. He's just kind of annoying. But overall, though, like I said, the story's really good, the character dynamics are really good, and then the humor is on point. There is a lot of really good little bits of humor. Like, I forget her name. She has been in a lot of horror films lately. Most recently, she was in Lisa Frankenstein, but she's also been in Freaky as well as Supernatural. Her. She is really good at this film, and to be honest, all of the stuff that she's in is actually really good. She seems to be kind of the humor foil for a lot of it, other than the meathead, who's played by... And that's why we have the popcorn bucket. Yes, you are very helpful. Thank you. You're a lot more helpful than the other guy. Anyway, so the humor's actually really good, because it's a little like one-liners and things like that. And then there's a little bit of dark humor. There's a little bit of like situational humor. There's literally ugh. I can talk... Thank you, Popcorn Bucket. You're very helpful. There's literally a scene where Lisa Frankenstein, they call her Sammy. They call her Sammy. And yes, one of the other characters was Dean. One of them was Sam. It was actually, they had a lot of really fun names. But Sam ends up falling into like this pool that's full of dead bodies, and it's kind of the reveal of like, oh, this isn't like the first time it's happened a lot. But she ends up in like this pool of dead bodies, and she is just caked in gunk and crap. And the next scene that you see her, she literally is like walking up like in shock, gets up to Joey and just goes, I'm here. It's like she's in shock. And it's actually really good. It's little bits and pieces like that that really kind of shine in this film. Like I said, it's like little itty bitty one-liners, little innuendos and stuff like that. Not like innuendos, like sexual innuendos, but like they play the humor really well, and it's really subtle, so it's nice and fun. It's a little bit of levity in the case of all the gore and shock humor. Or not shock humor, but shock horror. So that was really good. Overall, I think I've talked to you guys long enough, honestly. This film is just a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun watching it. As far as horror films that I've seen this year, it is miles better than something like Night Swim, which was just awful. And it was better than Lisa Frankenstein because it did kind of the horror element, and it had enough humor in it that it was just fun, and it kind of kept the energy alive in this film that could have really quickly become something that was like Saw, and had leaned into the gore enough that it's almost comparable. I say almost, but it's like people trapped in a house trying to escape, and there's a lot of gore. That's kind of the only similarities, but overall, they just did a really good job with it. And I think I've only seen, how many horror films have I seen this year? 3? Sounds right. So, yeah, like of all the horror films I've seen this year, this one is probably the best one so far. It is really well done, and it is a lot better than even The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which was the last Universal horror film that I saw. No, wait. Blumhouse is Universal, isn't it? Anyway. The films are fun. If you got this far, you've probably already seen it, and you know it's fun. Anyway, thanks so much for watching this entire video. We try to do a new movie review every single week. This one's kind of like a special edition thing because we got the Unlimited Popcorn Bucket here. We'll have a double feature, so like I'm watching 2 movies today, and we'll have that video up before this one. So we try to do a review every single week. Sometimes we have an additional review with either just myself or the Popcorn Bucket, because I just like going to movies and it's a lot of fun, and I like letting you guys know what my thoughts are, so that way you're not just going into a movie blind. So we do that every Saturday. Otherwise, we like to do a lot of different things in relation to movies, entertainment. We do kind of focus on movies, old movies, bad movies, and movie topics in general with a podcast, and we do those every Wednesday. So if that interests you, this channel would interest you, so please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Otherwise, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know with a like. We'll see you guys in the next video.